So let's go ahead and get started. I imagine if you are here, you're here to listen in on, and understand a little bit more about Gmail, and chances are you probably have some Gmail delivery issues, and that's okay, right? I mean, we all have delivery challenges, and Silverpop is here to help. And so today is going to be focused purely on Gmail, but a note to make is that while these rules will apply to Gmail, they're really best practices as well. So applying these practices to your list overall will go a long way in improving your overall deliverability. Over the past several years, I've watched the industry change, and it's changing for the better. It's really becoming a point of having the major ISPs work with the recipients, with the senders, but also giving some good best practices on how to get messages delivered. That said, I want to also point out that there isn't a silver bullet. There isn't anything that I can tell you today that will guarantee delivery into any inbox. Deliverability teams cannot fix issues. As much as I really wish we could and really wish we had a silver bullet, we can't. But we can talk through some best practices. We can give you guidance. We can give you specific help that can go a long way. So I want to extend that even beyond today's broadcast, if you have questions or concerns and you're having challenges, please reach out to us. Well, we're here to help. You can reach us through the support portal, through calling the support number, or honestly, even just reaching out directly to your RM or RSM. So Gmail has honestly turned the industry on its end, and I think it's a rather interesting take. But what you have to understand is most ISPs in the past had always taken a lot of the burden of why your messages or a sender's messages weren't delivered to the inbox. And there was quite the conversation going back and forth between postmaster groups and deliverability teams. Gmail takes a fresh approach to it. Gmail states that their filters do what they need to do. And if you're sending properly and you have good sending behavior, you're going to get to the inbox. Most of what they depend on is the algorithms they've put in place, and that's a fresh perspective, because now instead of having some level of doubt in something and to say, well, maybe this filter isn't working right or is working right, there's the offshoot that Gmail may have it wrong, and they will take feedback, but they're pretty confident in the fact that once you improve your delivery best practices, you will get back into the inbox. And I'll tell you, I've been watching this and giving similar recommendations both to clients and through my team, and we see it. It's working. I mean, when you do what you're supposed to be doing, for the most part, you'll get in there. Another point to make is that you're not alone. I took a snapshot of my own inbox or my own bulk folder in Gmail, and you can see there's a litany of major brands that are in my bulk folder. Some, like Blockbuster, float. Sometimes they're in my bulk folder. Sometimes they're in my inbox, but it varies. But here they are, a major brand going directly to the bulk folder. So it's not that Gmail is targeting anyone specifically. Again, it isn't your ESP's fault, be it Silverpop or anyone else. It isn't necessarily your fault. A lot of what people have grown to rely on in terms of practices they've had over time have worked, but as the rules change and as the systems continue to grow and develop, and user engagement becomes a bigger part, you'll have to adapt and grow with it. So we do have some suggestions, like I said, so don't feel that this is all doom and gloom. At Silverpop, we never settle for good enough, so we are going to come up with some good ideas of what you can do to make things better. And again, these practices have been tried and true, and we've given them to other clients, and they've worked well. So hopefully they'll do the same for you. One of the first things I want to do, and it's rather long, it's a couple paragraphs, but I really want to read through this. This is what Gmail actually has stated on their blog, and it's their viewpoint on delivering messages. It says, we've received inquiries from bulk senders who'd like more information on best practices to ensure that their mail is delivered to Gmail users. The way Gmail classifies spam depends heavily on reports from our users. Gmail users can mark and unmark any messages as spam at any time. To increase the inbox delivery rate of your messages, you the marketer, make sure that all recipients on your distribution list actually want to receive the email. While Gmail works hard to deliver all legitimate mail to a user's inbox, it's possible that some legitimate messages may be marked as spam. Gmail does not accept whitelisting requests from bulk senders, and we can't guarantee that all of your messages will bypass our spam filters. To make sure users receive all the mail they'd like to, we've provided them with a method for sending us feedback about messages flagged as spam. Users have the option of clicking a Not Spam button for each message flagged by our filters. We listen to users' reports and correct problems in order to provide them with the best user experience. As long as our users don't consider your mail as spam, you shouldn't have inbox delivery problems. So that's directly from their mouth, and that is their stance on delivery. And so we're going to cover that a little bit more in detail throughout our next several minutes together, and hopefully I can address a lot of these points and give you some good recommendations. So the old ways aren't changing. I always say this. They're being appended. What used to be true is still true. If you have a lot of invalid accounts in your list, hard bounces, get rid of them, right? That's never a good thing. If you have content issues, fix them. That's never a good thing. But there's more to the game than just sending to valid accounts and having clean content. It's about user engagement. How do open rates play a role? They're just as important as ever. But now, rather than it just being important to you as a marketer to say, how active are my recipients, and does mailing perform well, is getting a lot of opens and clicks, and are people taking some action on it? The ISPs are interested in it as well, Gmail included, right? They're watching those open rates to see how active your recipient list is. Open rates can vary by a ton of aspects, as I'm sure most of you are aware: relevancy, frequency, timeliness. And you can play with the numbers, and you can do what you can to try to improve them or make them look better for a short period of time. But ultimately, Gmail holds the key, right? They're going to monitor your delivery rates, and they're going to see if people really want your messaging. It's not a matter of being lower necessarily than anyone else. It's not a matter of being higher. I've often had the question of what's a good open rate and where should I be? There are industry trends, if you will, of where you could kind of stay between, and there's always some rule of thumb numbers. You don't really want to see an open rate down in the single digits, especially the very low single digits, the 1%, 2%, 3%. But again, it just depends on what you're doing and how often you send and how targeted your audience is. Ultimately, the higher your open rates, the more targeted your list and the more active your engagement, the better your delivery will be. So what is user engagement? I've talked about it a few times. Gmail and other major ISPs give basically positive points for engagement. It's like I've mentioned before, it's kind of like high school reputation all over again, right? The cool kids and the ones that have a good way of going about making friends and getting along well, they do fine, and everything works out well. Those that more force themselves on people or almost become a nuisance, right, those are a nuisance to the ISPs. So they want people that can actually show that their recipients want to receive those messages. They want to see that interaction between the sender and the receiver. And it should be an interaction. There should be a relationship. One thing that sets Gmail apart is there's no feedback loop. A feedback loop is a mechanism where the ISP shares information back to the ESP. Gmail doesn't offer this in so many words. AOL, Yahoo, several other ISPs do. And it's a great bit of feedback. So it helps us understand, it helps you as a marketer understand how many complaints you're getting, how many times someone marks your message as spam. In the Gmail world, they do provide a list unsubscribe header. And what that basically says is it's something we've put in place mechanically in all of Silverpop headers. So for all of your messages being sent, it's there. But what it does is it allows when a recipient chooses to mark your message as spam, it gives them the option for opting out, for unsubscribing. But that, too, is only there when you, the marketer, have a good sending reputation into Gmail. To say that again, if you have poor reputation at Gmail, this list unsubscribe header will not be present. Even though the technology is there and it's built into all the headers, a recipient wouldn't be able to see it if you haven't first established that good reputation. Again, that kind of goes back to Gmail's stance on they want to see that you're interacting with people as you should. If you are interacting, then there's really no concern on their part. They know that things happen, and sometimes you'll get an issue where someone wants to mark your message as spam, and it really isn't spam, but that person is just going to click on it because they, for whatever reason, don't want it at that moment. And that's fine. So then they make that unsubscribe present for that person, but for that recipient. But for the most part, you have to make sure your reputation is in place to have that available. So backing the engagement point of view, there are both positive and negative points. So the better, the more of these actions that are taken, opens, link clicks, they give a lot of points for replying to messages, moving from bulk to inbox, right? Those are positive steps that your recipients can take to improve your reputation with Gmail. And again, like I said, a lot of this applies to many other ISPs as well, Yahoo and AOL and the like, that they do a lot of this already. So keep that in mind. It isn't just a Gmail thing, but as we are referring to Gmail right now, I want you to take note that for each of these aspects, these are positive interactions. And the reason why I say lots of replies, that shows ultimate engagement. So the more you can have your recipients engage with you, the better you're going to do overall. Negatives include when a recipient marks your email as spam, when they delete it without ever opening it, when they choose not to mark it as not spam. It's kind of redundant, but right, when they don't take actions that could make you look better, those are all negative impacts. That's saying, the last one is saying that your message went to the bulk folder, and as a recipient, I didn't say it isn't spam. So as far as Gmail is concerned, their filter is doing what it should be doing, right? If I received it in my bulk folder and I'm fine with it staying there, then why would Gmail want to take steps to help get that back into the inbox? Ultimately, Gmail's there for their users, their accounts. They want to make sure that their accounts receive what they should be receiving, and their name's on the line, right? If they get this wrong, their account holders are going to get very upset. If I have my own Gmail account, if I start receiving a lot of legitimate mail in my bulk folder, I'm not going to continue to use Gmail very often. But I'll tell you, 9 times out of 10, they're right. When something goes to my bulk folder, I'm not reading it. I'm not looking for it. I have to remember to go back and check my Gmail account because in the bulk folder because I typically don't look at it because I'm so sure that what they're putting there is trustworthy of being something I don't need. Consistency and volume is important industry-wide, but something to make note of is if you have a mailing bulked by its entirety or in large percentage, future mailings are likely going to do the same. What Gmail said at that point is by looking at that mailing and how it got delivered, they've made the determination that too many messages were able to go to the bulk folder without anyone taking any reasonable action to get it out of the bulk folder, so you can reasonably expect that future ones are going to as well. Future mailings are going to end up there as well. So how to tell? Inbox monitoring. If you haven't used it before, it's, I believe, $5 a send, but talk with your RM and they can, your relationship manager, and they can help get that turned on for you if it's not already activated. And that's a good way to determine if you are currently going to the Gmail bulk folder and give you a good idea of what to do going forward. Find a sending pattern and keep with it, provided you're already ramped up. If this is a new IP, you're going to want to take your time and ramp that up. And I'm going to answer this question real quick, and then we'll get right back over to this. Can you define when an email is considered open? That is when it has, in most cases, has a tracking pixel and has some way of being opened in the Gmail folder. So if someone were to physically click on the email, obviously that would be considered an open, or if they can view it in a viewable pane, that's considered an open. As long as that tracking pixel gets to render, it's been opened. So on sending from a new IP, you need to make sure that you follow the ramp-up guidelines that are in place. We do have a safety in place that we put in a few years back that limits the amount of messaging that you can send during your ramp-up, making sure that you stay to a very consistent volume as you start to establish that reputation. During that time, you want to make sure that you're sending to your best openers, your best clickers, people that you can feel confident are going to engage with your mailing. Just simply sending the right volume isn't enough. You need to make sure they're engaged recipients. If your reputation is questionable, if you have content issues and or send inactive accounts, and you either are or likely will have delivery issues. So you recognize you have a problem, now what? Stop doing bad things, right? I mean, it's that simple. Remove all Gmail hard bounces from your list immediately. Stop sending to any Gmail subscribers that have not opened in the past 6 months. Gmail and other ISPs turn old users into what's called a honeypot or a spam trap, which is an account that's been reactivated so that they can that's been off for some period of time. So hard bouncing for 6 months to a year, in some cases even more, and they turn them live again and start monitoring for anyone sending to those. The thought is, if say you've had a list for the past 2 years and many recipients on that list, some portion of them were hard bouncing, and you weren't taking use of the suppression that we have built into our product, and you're going back and you're putting those hard bounces back in and trying to resend to those. Or you just simply aren't sending frequently enough, right? So now it's been more than 6 months, and during that time frame the message has been bouncing, hard bouncing. They'll turn it back live. The ISP, Gmail in this case, will turn it live, and when you send to it again, now you're sending to a spam trap. Reason being, they can know that by having it set to hard bounce for 6 months to a year and then turning it live again, someone has not, you have not had contact with that recipient for at least some period of time, and there's no way that you could still have what's considered to be a legitimate conversation going on with that recipient, right? You've lost that recipient. So at that point, that's a significant detractor. That's going to look really bad in the ISP's eyes, and Gmail particularly is going to impact your delivery rate. Start doing good things, right? Pretty easy, I think. Stop doing the bad, start doing the good. Good things. Ask your best Gmail customers to help you rebuild your reputation. They are truly key to where you will be in the future. Without them, you will never make it back into the inbox potentially. Think of it as this. You're asking your friends to help rebuild your reputation. It's asking the people that you know really like you to stick up for you and say, hey, I'm a good sender. You know you want me. Everyone else should too, right? Help get my word out and spread the word. And that's what they're doing. Right? Each time you can get more of your, quote, friends, and we'll talk more and more about friends, but you'll hear that word coming up more and more. The manager of my delivery team will be speaking at it, the customer conference at Amplify this year. But it's a friendship, right? That's what you're building. And the more you can get them to vouch for you, the better off you'll be. Again, ask them to reply. That helps a lot. Clear call to action. Give them something to click on. Save now. Gmail users, extra 10% off. Something clear. Use a clear unsubscribe. One thing I've said many times is if someone wants off your list, they're going to get off your list. They're either going to mark it as abusive, they're going to complain to the ISP, they're going to complain to us, they're going to complain to a blacklist, they're going to complain somewhere that's going to cause them to get off of the list. The only difference is by not giving them a clear unsubscribe, you're going to create more pain for your brand, your recognition, and your reputation. So let them off as easy as possible. One-click opt-out and let them go. Here's some visual recommendations. This one's for Sherry's Berries, and this is shared by a few people around the industry. This is a great idea. This first one shows that they are both reminding recipients to click not spam, but then they also say, if you really want to guarantee the best deals, make sure that you add that cherries, berries to the contact list. And if possible, you can see here they've segmented Gmail users. Segment out your Gmail users. Give specific subject lines and target them. Here's another. This one was from Newegg. I've used them several times in the past myself. And you can see here they say ensure delivery by adding their email address to your address book. Here's another that you can see basically the same thing. For priority inbox users, please click the little marking there to ensure delivery of the latest offers. All tactics you can employ. Okay, we have another question. Aren't hard bounces sent to my suppression list? Why would I need to remove Gmail hard bounces from my database? That's a great question. So what I'm really referring to is make sure that you don't take them off of your suppression list and make sure that you don't try to bypass the suppression list. For Silverpop users, for the most part, you should have no worries about having your hard bounces automatically suppressed. The other concern, though, is age, time of send. So if you wait 7 months, 8 months, 9 months before sending again, it could be that that 6-month period in between, that email address was hard bouncing. Now when you go to send again, it's an active address, but it's now a honeypot or a spam trap. One nice thing to call out there is a honeypot or a spam trap should never, for the most part, should never open or click. And so if you're sending to addresses that are not opening and clicking and not bouncing, that could still cause you issues. So that's where this focus on the openers and clickers really comes from, right? You want to make sure that you have a clean list of people that are actively engaged. The inactive, those not replying, could just be people that are not responsive, like myself in many cases, or it could be worse. It could be a spam trap, and that's really going to hurt your reputation. Again, like I mentioned, do all these rules apply to all ISPs? They do, and to some extent. Brightmail, Barracuda, there are several services like them out there, CloudMark as well. I've kind of named them umbrella services, and I don't know if that's a proper fitting name, but basically they have a lot of users both at ISPs and individual users that just use the service, either through having the box or otherwise signing up for the service. So they're still doing a lot of the same, right? They're looking for message types, they're looking for engagement, they're looking for activity, and while you may feel that you're only sending to small ISPs, or maybe you're more of a B2B sender, you're still probably being impacted by some bit of Brightmail, Barracuda, CloudMark, one of those engines, because they're out there so vastly that it's likely being used by someone or so many people on your list. And so poor reputation and poor sending practices, even when going the B2B side, can still overly impact your delivery rates. AOL, Hotmail, and Yahoo, they all have similar metrics for looking at user engagement. Comcast is a little bit different. They use gray listing metrics, but it's similar. It's not as in-depth, if you will, but they do have a similar way of looking at things. Fingerprinting. I want to spend a minute here. You know, it could vary. Fingerprinting is where a message that has certain characteristics is stamped to say that this is a type of message that I can expect to see from whomever. And once they get a good fingerprint on a message, they use that to determine if similar messages should go to the inbox or bulk folder. You know, that can be good and bad. Once they get a feel, anyone gets a feel for your type of messaging. If it's a good message, you'll likely do better. If it's not, you might have some issues. So a recommendation is to change things up a bit. Try a few different pieces of creative that are slightly different or maybe even significantly different, targeted in different ways. One recommendation is to try text message. It may do better than HTML. It can go either way depending on where your reputation currently stands. But one thing that is for sure, if you can get a text message into a Gmail inbox, something to first ask is, please add your email address to their address book. It doesn't guarantee anything that anything will change, but it is a good way of at least getting that conversation going again, where someone may receive the email in the inbox and they can say, oh, all I have to do is make sure I add this to my inbox, to my address book, and I'll start getting these messages in the future. So give that a try and see how that goes. Does time of day or day of week matter? It used to be we would always recommend Tuesday mornings, and that was many years ago. But I can honestly say that the landscape has changed so vastly that it doesn't make a difference. And look at Groupon as an example, right? I mean, if you have someone that's expecting a message every day, or a large database of people that are expecting a message every day, then send every day. But don't send every day when you have a message that wouldn't necessarily want to be received. And how do you determine that? Opens, clicks, right? Metrics. You want to be able to validate that if you're doing something every single day, that there are people sitting on the other side taking advantage of whatever you're sending to them. You don't want to just shove something down their throats, because that's going to start to get disengaged, and you're going to start to lose that audience. That said, here's a screenshot from a Groupon message where they actually have talked about it as well, and that they say that, remember, you can always unsubscribe from this at any time, but they also give options for, in other emails, they give options for making sure to add your email to address book, and giving them opportunities to add them back in. Improving engagement. So again, overall, lead source. When you start with your initial way of building a database, start organically. I had a conversation at a recent conference at AMA recently, a few weeks ago I spoke at, where someone in the audience really had a hard time understanding why they should grow their list organically. Why couldn't they just purchase a list and start from there? And I'll tell you, it's because of this user engagement, right? There's no way in the world you could get around that with purchasing a list. When you purchase a list, you're now assuming that people that have even marked somewhere, potentially at best case, that they would be okay with receiving messages from similar type vendors. I, as a recipient, did not explicitly say, I would like you to send me messaging. So now you're going to send me something, and I may not be ready for it. I may not want it. I may not have any interest in it whatsoever, and all you did was hurt your reputation by doing that. So if you have a product to sell or you have a message to send, you obviously have some client following. And so with that, engage them. Get them to sign up. Get them to double opt-in. Send them confirmation emails. Don't do pre-populated checkboxes. That's a really easy way to get a lot of people angry, where they will end up, you'll end up putting a form out there that says by, that already has a checkbox checked that says by leaving this checked, or by checking this, you agree to receive our emails from us and our vendors. Well, that makes it really difficult for the recipient. Right now, you more or less tricked me into it. I had a form that I filled out one time that had a pre-checked checkbox, and I unchecked it and submitted. I had an error in it. I think my password was bad. It went back, and I corrected my password, but had rechecked that checkbox again. Had I not caught that, they would have caught me on a sign-up that I did not sign up for. It was purely, it was purely a typo, and that caused it to get me back into the list potentially. So avoid that wherever possible. And again, don't purchase, and don't send co-reg emails where at all possible. Those are both very, very difficult strategies to employ, and can cause you a lot of heartache. Frequency. Set the expectations like I talked about with Groupon, right? The expectation is that I'm going to receive a Groupon every day. I'm okay with that. At some point, I may get tired of that in the years to come. I don't know. Right now, I'm still okay with seeing my Groupon messages every day. But I understand it. I know what I signed up for. I'm expecting it. So for right now, I'm okay. But that's where preference centers come involved, right? If you're not sure if someone would want to receive all of your messaging or some of your messaging, create a preference center. Maybe I no longer want to receive all of Groupon's messages. Maybe I just want to receive their newsletters. Maybe I just want to receive certain marketing messaging. Give me the option to do that. One-click opt-out is nice, but in some cases, recipients would like to have a choice. Snooze feature, something we employ as well. It's a Silverpop feature. I've seen it work really well. What that does is it allows you to choose, in your preference center, allow a recipient to choose how long they would like to stop receiving messages. So maybe they're going on a trip or going away or whatever have you. They just want a break, right? It's not you, it's me. They can choose the snooze feature and they can opt out to say don't send me any messaging for 4 months and get a little break, but without fully opting out of your list. Send time optimization. Send time optimization is a great feature that we have here at Silverpop. What that does is it allows your messaging to be delivered at the time the recipients typically want to receive it. So if, as an example, if I open an email from Radio Shack every morning at 8 a.m., if Radio Shack were sending, it would come through into my inbox and be delivered 8 a.m. every morning. Good for 2 reasons. One, it shortens any idle time. It's not sitting in an inbox where we're not engaging with someone, right? That engagement piece, as soon as it hits my inbox, excuse me, that we know that it's going to go through and everything's going to be great. I'm going to click on that email and I'm going to read it. But it also staggers your sends. So rather than having the old batch and blast mantra, you're sending when someone wants to receive it. It's easier on the ISPs, specifically Gmail, because you're not sending 4 million messages at 8 a.m. You're sending maybe 100, maybe 1,000 at 8 a.m., maybe another couple thousand at 8:02 a.m., and it continues to drip them throughout the day based on when those recipients have taken action in the past, opens, clicks. Call to action, right? Why should I click? So it's going to help build your brand. It's going to reduce the unsubscribes. It's going to improve your overall reliability in your recipient base. So with Gmail specifically, you can go about, you can take a specific subject line, take a segment that goes to Gmail and say, Gmail users, click here to save 10% today, right? Now I'm targeted and I'm interested. So maybe now I'm going to click on it a little bit more and think, well, I really have a special deal, right? You want something that gives me some reason to take action. Another question just came in. What is the best way to query for Gmail subscribers who haven't opened in 6 months? When I try to create a query and use behavior, it wants me to choose a specific mailing. It is difficult. That's a valid question. It is difficult to get a full database-related mailing or query created. It is something that we can do on the back end. So if you need it and you send too many mailings to be able to target your entire database, again, feel free to give a call to support and we can go ahead and get that request in and pull the data from the back end. And so, kind of appropriate, I'm going to start talking about some behavioral queries. So running behavioral queries to gather your data, to show the age of the addresses, and if the address was active is always a good thing. Engaged in active activity information as well as the opt-in date is essential to any campaign. And then here's the number to call support to get the automated behavior tracking feature on the master database set up if it has not been done previously. Run a behavioral query to gather all the recipients who have opened, clicked on your mailings. Hopefully this all active openers segment is big enough to divide up and send as many days as you can stretch out. The minimum will be 5 days, but 2 weeks will show better results. And here's an idea of what the behavioral queries could look like. Your first segment being all openers, and then start going into segment 2, 3, 4 with inactive addresses that are older and slowly feeding those back in. Point to make, again, don't send to any inactive addresses older than a year, and even try nothing greater than 6 months. Try new creative to simulate opens, clicks with a good call to action. Maybe split up the mailing and do an A/B test. Update your website and periodically include the following, which is something you can even put in your mailings. Says something along the line of, if you do not see our mailing, then then check the bulk folder. If our mailing is there, then move this mailing from the bulk folder to the inbox and add us to your contact list to ensure that you always receive our newsletter in your inbox, right? That's a very similar message to what Sherry's Berries did, but they did it in an email to say, hey, if you received us here in the bulk folder, this is what you need to do to get us out of it. You're asking your friends for help. So the non-openers, we have a plan for those two. When you do your re-engagement, make sure that you have a very clear re-engagement email. It says, please click here to continue to receive the mailings. Not the, I guess, passive opt-in, which is if you don't click, you will continue to say receive our messaging. That doesn't help, obviously, like we just spoke about with in the way of spam traps and honeypots, they wouldn't click. So sending it to a honeypot saying, please click here to continue to send, or by not clicking, you'll continue to receive, well, they're going to continue to receive. What you're going to want to send is that very clear, here's what you need to do to stay on my list. Otherwise, I'm just going to part ways with you, because ultimately, the inactive addresses are going to hurt your overall reputation. That overall reputation hit is going to hurt your active recipients, which will eventually cause you to have poor reputation and poor delivery overall. So while trying to hold on to the older to make sure that you can still address them, you're potentially forsaking all of your current people that want to receive it and eventually making a bad name for yourself. Another question just came in. What is the difference between an inactive account and one who hasn't opened or clicked? So by statistics, it's really hard to determine, right? If I haven't opened and clicked, I am defined as an inactive account. I am not taking activity. I'm not taking some action. So what you want to do is, like I said, it's hard, but you have to just make the determination on your own side to say that you're going to focus on only those that are active, be it hard to distinguish between someone that's, like I said, probably like myself, honestly, I would be considered an inactive address only because I don't typically interact through email with an ISP, with a sender. I apologize, with a sender. And so by metrics, you would probably say that I'm inactive because I'm just not opening emails. I'm not clicking on emails. I'll go back, and often the emails that you're sending to me may result in me going to your website, and you can use that metric to an extent if you see that you have other markings that show someone has recently purchased or recently had taken some activity on your mailing, even if it wasn't directly through your mailing. They didn't open it, they didn't click, but I just received an email from Groupon, and I decided that day to go ahead and purchase something at Groupon. It could be that that email sparked my attention when I saw the subject line. I just didn't bother to open it or click it. So that's not necessarily a negative, but you really want to focus on those that are taking action, because that's where your improvement in Gmail is going to come from, and that's where your improvement across the other ISPs are going to come from, that interaction between recipient and sender. So how to maintain a good reputation. Continual list maintenance of all lists. This isn't something that you can just do one time and walk away from. It's a process that you'll stay with for the rest of your sending career, right? You want to make sure that people are receiving what they want to receive and that you're having that interaction with them. The more you stand at the street corner and yell your marketing offers, the more deadened that message becomes and the less interactive your recipients become. Keep consistent sending patterns. Don't blast to everyone on your list. Turn on send time optimization. Focus on those recipients and the times that they want to receive their messaging. If you have a large volume that you need to send and you have to send it at one large sum, do it, but do it consistently. Hotmail even as well really likes to see consistent setting patterns. Spikes or variations really make it difficult for an ISP, namely in this case Gmail, to determine the good from the bad. And really that's probably a good takeaway point as well. If you think about what you shouldn't be doing, you probably want to look at what the true junk is in your junk mailbox, your bulk folder. Don't mimic that, right? If you typically only send 1,000 messages at a time, and all of a sudden you find this list that's been sitting in a cupboard somewhere, hidden away for a year of 2 million recipients, and you send to that list, you're going to vastly, one, damage your reputation, but two, most of the messaging is probably going to get blocked, if not bulked. You're ultimately not going to reach your audience anyway, but now what you've done is, again, you've forsaken your good for your bad. Now you've hurt your reputation, and those that really wanted to receive your messaging won't, and you'll have a big uphill fight to get that reputation restored. I've also been asked a few times of what's a good reputation versus a bad, and how long does it take to fix a bad reputation? I've always kind of likened reputation to a credit score anyway, and so in that same context, how long would it take to come back from a really bad credit score? It varies, right? I mean, if you've had 5 bankruptcies, that's probably worse than 1 bankruptcy, but a bankruptcy is probably not a good thing on your credit. Whereas a lot of positive things like paying your bills on time and keeping a good loan-to-debt ratio and keeping your balances low on your cards that you do maintain, right? Those are all good practices, and the more you do those, the higher your score goes. So you wouldn't want to mirror someone that has claimed bankruptcy 5 times and think, well, I can just buy a bunch of stuff and never pay it off because they've been able to do it. Just because they're able to do it doesn't mean they're getting a positive result from it. You want to mimic those that have the positive trends. Check your single mailing report on a daily basis and look at your top domains report for bounces, abuse complaints, and open rates. Monitor those closely and see how you're performing. Ultimately, you want to be able to judge and see overall trends, be it Gmail or Hotmail or many ISPs. If you're seeing something going wrong, something's going south, you likely have a bigger issue than just Gmail anyway, and that needs to be corrected. Kind of the takeaway points, the 2 important factors to Gmail. 1, the from address, and 2, enticing clients to click not spam. Other factors that play an important role, SPF and DKIM. Both authentication methods, both fully supported by Silverpop, and while not required, any domains that you send through us, if you've had them set up with our provisioning team, they have already given you those records. If you haven't put them in place, please do not send from those domains. And it affects multiple aspects of delivery across the board, not just Gmail, but it does exceptionally hurt Gmail. The point of authentication is to show that you are who you're purporting to be. It keeps the bad from the good, right? If someone were out there trying to fake emails from UPS, some bad sender, the ISP wants to be able to block that. And they would block that one way is by authentication, right? They want to be able to look at the authentication and see that it came from an IP, that message came from an IP that UPS has not reported it would come from. So if you're doing the same through Silverpop, while you're not intentionally mimicking that, if you have authentication on a domain and you send it through Silverpop, an ISP wouldn't be able to tell the difference. And so that's going to hurt your overall delivery placement. Subscription, each user in your distribution list should opt in to receive a message from you, and unsubscribing periodically send confirmation messages to users. and provide a preference center. Looks like we have another question. What would constitute a consistent setting pattern? Same time, monthly, weekly, etc.? That's a great question. So consistent to your needs. You know, there are some ISPs that kind of look at it from a perspective if they would like to see the same type of volume every day. That's not always reasonable. The better you can do with that, I applaud you. But yet that's a fine line, right? Because if you're not the Groupon style, if say this is TurboTax, and I expect to receive an email from them once a year, but they decide to start sending me an email every day because they want to make sure that they're consistently sending on a daily pattern, right? Now that's going to throw me off. Now I'm going to consider that abusive, and I'm likely going to mark it as spam to get off the list and just be done with it. I would say rather find what's realistic for you. If you're still trying to find that pattern, do some testing. Monitor your progress. If you're just building that list organically and you have a newsletter to send, try sending one weekly. Maybe send out a survey and ask, hey, is this something you would like to receive more frequently, less frequently? Give them opportunities and listen. Let them reply to the message and say, hey, would you like to continue to see this? Would you like to see it at a different interval? Your recipients should ultimately dictate, and their actions should ultimately dictate how often or infrequently you send. It's going to be different for everyone, honestly. So wrap up. Segment Gmail messages. Ask recipients to add to address book. Maintain clean content. Incentivize. Give them something to click after. Check your single mailing report on a daily basis and look at your top domains report. Send re-engagement, emails, campaigns. Ask recipients to click not spam. Do not send to inactive/non-engaged Gmail recipients, and use the Gmail-specific subject line so it stands out in the spam folder where they specifically have a call to action. One other piece I wanted to talk about today is the via in Gmail. I haven't spoken about this a lot lately, but we're getting a lot of questions, so I want to make sure that everyone's aware. Vias pop up, what I referred to earlier on the authentication piece, when Gmail is unable to determine where the message came from. So using the UPS name again, if UPS were to send me an email, but it wasn't properly authenticated, it would then show that UPS sent from, so UPS at ups.com sent from wherever they sent from, the mail server name. So if it's a Silverpop mail server, it would show the mail server. And the reason they do that is so that as a recipient, I can go in and I can see, oh, I just got an email from UPS at ups.com via some other server. And that shows that it didn't come from where they expected it to come from. And they want to make me as a recipient aware because it may be a phishing message. They're not sure. It's hard to tell. Authentication is key. That is one way that it keeps it down. It says it here. Once Gmail concludes that you communicate with the sender, for example, if you replied to emails from the sender or if you add the sender to your address book, we'll stop displaying the full email address. However, if the sender sends the email through a third-party service like a mailing list, we may continue to show via followed by the service that sent the message. And then it says, I'm a sender, and I don't want my recipients to see the via link. What can I do? It says Gmail checks whether emails are correctly authenticated. If your messages are sent by a bulk mailing vendor or a third-party affiliate, please publish an SPF record that includes the IPs of the vendor or affiliates which send your messages and sign your messages with a DKIM signature that is associated with your domain. Very, very, very important to have that authentication in place. But here, too, it also speaks to the communication, right? If I, as a recipient, start responding and replying, now I've established a conversation. And once I establish that conversation, Gmail acknowledges they'll let it continue to go on because they don't want to hurt that interaction. And finally, I'll just go over these steps to take going forward. This kind of breaks down in more detail what we just spoke about on the wrap-up. Ask your users to mark your messages as not spam on the sign-up page. Encourage readers to click on the Always Display Images from this address button. This lets Google know that you are a valid sender and enables your recipients to see your HTML emails as they were intended to be seen. Ask your readers to add your sending from address to their Gmail contact list. This is a simple way to ensure all eager emails get delivered to the inbox, as it puts a big seal of approval on everything you send. Keep a close eye on recipient behavior. Recipients who open your emails and click through your links are engaged users. Their behavior indicates they want to receive messages from you. Recipients who never open your messages could become an issue for you if they decide to report you as spam, even though they signed up to hear from you in the first place. If a subscriber hasn't clicked or opened your email in the last 45 to 60 days or two or greater publications, you should consider a re-engagement strategy and ultimately remove unengaged users from your list. Monitor domain engagement. Even though Gmail doesn't offer a feedback loop for complaints, you can assume that Gmail subscribers would behave about the same as the active portion of the ISPs that do have feedback loops. So monitor those feedback loops and the abuse complaints that you see and engage. And if you see that you're starting to get more complaints in general with your list, that's a good indication that something's going wrong. All right. And so at this point, I'll look to see if there are any more questions.
In response to how we can create a query to pull Gmail subscribers, if you're using automated behaviors, the last open date will work. Once you set up the field and set up the org admin settings, then you can set up that query. And let me show you how to pull it up here. I don't know if you want to tell them that or not, but I did tell it to the question answer.
Okay. Well, I can hand back the mic to you if you'd like to go through it.
Okay, sure.
All right, here's Allison. She's going to go through behavioral queries a little bit.
Thanks, Robert. I just want to show you guys really quickly. Thanks to Faith Albert, for letting us know. Let's see. Hold on one second. I pulled up the query screen here. Sorry, I've got a lot of control panels up here. But something that you can use on your, hopefully you can see my screen. Yeah, okay. The last open date can be set up as part of your automated behaviors. So you can include this in, it becomes a profile field. It's not a behavior field. But you can do this through your org admin settings. So for the example that Ryan asked us earlier, you can say last opened is not within the last 6 months, and email contains at gmail.com, and that would allow you to pull anyone from Gmail, the Gmail domain, that has not interacted or not opened in the last 6 months. So you have some choices there: last opened, last sent, and there's one more there's one more automated behavior. But this is all done, and I'll show you, and I'll be able to remember. This is all done in your org settings under automated behavior updates. Last click. Thanks, Allie Simmons. So last clicked. And you just set these up under your org admin settings, automated behavior updates. And then it's one database, though. So if you're using a single database, it's going to be perfect for you, and hopefully you are. And then you can set those up, the fields up first, and then come here and map them to the appropriate open, click, date setting, and then use them in your profile queries. All right, looks like we have a couple of other questions come through. Let's see. Last click. Those update one time a day. Thank you for that. Let me see if I can. These chat panels get really small when you minimize them. Hold on one second. Any other questions? And I can unmute you if you need to. So just say, unmute me, please, and I will unmute you if you want to. I think we're good. All right, I'm going to give Robert the presentation back, and we're going to go through a couple of slides on his screen really quickly. Yep, click show my screen. We're good. Just don't forget to receive credit for the deliverability course. You'll want to go take the e-learning course test. And to access the test, just log into the training area of the support portal, enroll in it. It'll be in the upper right corner. And then just take the little test, especially if you're working towards your certification. Also, we want to let you know that you are going to be receiving the PowerPoint from today. We'll send this in the post-class materials, just like always. So if you've been to one of our classes before, you know how this works. You make sure to check your junk mail. Also, make sure that we're whitelisted, so we're right on target with what Robert was telling us today. And it'll come in an email that looks like this picture on the right side, and it'll come in a file attachment. You can see where it says click to download there. It'll also have a satisfaction survey, so if you would, please let Robert know how awesome he did today. And that's it. We will stay on the phone for a few more minutes if anybody has any follow-up questions. And thank you so much, Robert, for sharing all of your valuable information with us today. And I hope everyone has a great day. Thanks.
All right, everyone. It looks like all your questions have been addressed. So, again, if you want to reach out to me directly, you can reach me at rconsoli@silverpop.com. It's R-C-O-N-S-O-L-I at silverpop.com. Otherwise, there's also creating a support case to go to my deliverability team, or just give us a call. You have the number. Thank you again for today, and I hope everyone has